Hello every pony, Scar89 here once again with another fanfiction reading. Today I'm just going to be reading a short one, chapter 1. It's Doctor Who and Doctor Who's, I guess you could say. I don't know. It looks like a good one, so, I mean, why not? So, yeah. Today I will be reading If It Can Be Remembered by Shoto Man. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing these intros and outros because, I don't know, it seems unprofessional. I want to be more professional now. So, don't try to expect too many intros and outros because I'm going to be professional and stuff. So, and if it's up on this one, it's probably not by now though. It'll probably be up in later videos, but I have a new intro, so it is either or is going to be very cool. So. It's that. So today, like I said, I'll be reading "If It Can Be Remembered" by Shoto Man. If it can be remembered, it can come back. A Doctor Who Friendship is Magic short story by Shoto Man. The little girl lay there, curled up on her overlarge suitcase. She was bundled up for a night in the cold, in a heavy coat, stocking cap, galoshes, everything needed to be out in a night like this. Of course, she hadn't intended on staying out here for the whole night, no. The raggedy doctor had told her he'd be back in 5 minutes, and then they'd be off to see the world. The only problem was, despite all of his reassurance, all his talk about, "Do I look like people to you?" When she said people always say they'll come back, despite all his bluster and confidence and kindness, he hadn't come back. And she was just a little girl of 7. Even staying up until midnight was a difficult task. So she had fallen asleep, waiting for the raggedy doctor to come back. She didn't hear the crunching of footsteps on her rather bare lawn as the tall, almost scrawny man in the mismatched blue pants, sandy-colored shirt, tweed jacket, and red bow tie exited out of the back door of her home to find her lying there. The man smiled a sad little smile at the sight. "The girl who waited," he muttered to himself. "Come here, you," he added as he leaned over and picked her up, taking her back inside where it was nice and warm and safe. The raggedy doctor had returned, if only to say goodbye. Minutes later, and the girl had been returned to her bed, her coat and galoshes and scarf and hat carefully returned to her closet, and the doctor sat down on the not quite big enough chair next to her bed and looked down on her with that same smile on his face. Oh, the things he and this carrot-topped little thing would do, had done. They saved the English space colonies of the future, befriended none other than Vincent van Gogh, and saved the universe from imploding in upon itself. In his long life, the doctor had traveled with fellow Time Lords, 10 dogs, surprisingly adept schoolteachers, an irregularly brilliant mathematician, a would-be assassin, a near psychopath with a penchant for explosives, and the most brilliant temp in England. But none of them was quite what this little girl was. Amelia Pond, the girl who waited. The first face this face ever saw. She became more than just a companion, more than a friend. Somehow, she'd become family. And now, he was leaving. Not just leaving, but vanishing. None of the adventures they had would ever happen. She was going to grow up a perfectly normal little girl in a perfectly ordinary British town and marry an extraordinarily amazing ordinary bloke. "You know, it's funny," the doctor whispered to the sleeping child. "I thought if you could hear me, I could hang on, somehow." He shook his head in pained expression. "Silly me. Silly old doctor." His smile suddenly lit up as he leaned over and whispered conspiratorially, "When you wake up, you'll have a mum and dad." His smile darkened again as he nodded. "And you won't even remember me." "Well, you'll remember me a little. I'll be a story in your head. But that's okay. We're all stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh? 'Cause it was you know. It was the best. A daft old man who stole a magic box and ran away? Did I ever tell you that I stole it? Well, I borrowed it. I was always going to take it back. Oh, that box, Amy. You'll dream about that box. It'll never leave you. Big and little at the same time, brand new and ancient, and the bluest blue ever. And the times we had, eh? Would have had. A sigh escaped his lips. Never had. In your dreams, they'll still be there. The Doctor and Amy Pond, and the days that never came. The crack in the wall, the crack that started this whole adventure, the crack that had frightened a little girl who was completely unfazed by a blue box crashing into her garden, and the madman it brought, began screeching as it sealed itself. The cracks are closing, but they can't close properly until I'm on the other side. Tears began to well up in his eyes. I don't belong here anymore. I think I'll skip the rest of the rewind. I hate repeats. That way, just lay pain in any event. Live well. Love, Roy. He kissed his Amelia on the forehead one last time. Bye-bye, Pond. And then he was gone. "Oh, come on, Derpy, why not?" the chestnut-colored stallion asked, the very beginnings of a rather childish whine entering into his playful Trottingham brogue. His gray-coated, wall-eyed companion turned and cast him an annoyed glare. "Because, Doctor, there's just too much to do. You know how busy the rounds get this close to Hearthwarming Eve, and Dinky's class is putting on the pageant tonight. There's no way I'm going to miss that." The doctor rolled his blue eyes heavenward, taking in Ponyvale's annoyingly crisp, clear, cheerful, regulated sky. "And the TARDIS is a time machine," he pointed out, exasperated at once again, explaining the obvious. We can go out, have a spot of fun, and be back in time for tea." His face darkened slightly. "Oh, right, you don't take tea here. Just another reason I'm left wondering how I ever put up stakes in this surprisingly boring little historically important town to begin with." Derpy rolled her eyes at the beginning signs of the doctor's little tantrum. Yeah, it's a time machine you can barely drive. How much did we miss our return date by last time, huh? 5 days? A week? Even a couple of hours won't cut it. Not tonight." She cast the doctor a smile as she added, "Look, tomorrow's Sunday. I'll have the day off and just won't be... Look, tomorrow's Sunday. I'll have the day off and just won't be so busy, okay? We can take a trip then, if you can promise to at least get us back before the night is over. And if you're really so antsy today, why not go do something by yourself?" The doctor stopped short. "Myself?" "Sure, by yourself. You don't really need me along for everything, do you?" Derpy pointed at the happily bouncing form of Pinkie Pie across the street, saddlebags filled to bursting with presents and party supplies. "Even those 6 don't spend all their time together. Even best friends need a break every now and then." The doctor sighed. "I suppose." Derpy began to trot off. "Look, either way, I'm not free until tomorrow. But we'll do something then, I promise." Sure, the doctor replied. "It's a date." He turned away and walked back to his clock repair shop, taking in the sights as he did. Ponyville was draped in white, all the better to celebrate the holidays after all, and several ponies were out and about, shopping, laughing, going about their business. The train station was particularly busy, with the influx of ponies rushing off to the superior shops of Canterlot for their gifts. In short, it was an entirely, completely, utterly ordinary day. Staying here any longer was going to drive him stir-crazy. Looked like a solo trip was in the cards. But where to go? That was the question, wasn't it? When left on his own device, the doctor simply didn't have much of a clue on where he actually wanted to go or what he wanted to see. He'd been traveling for so long that, frankly, he'd seen it all before. That was what the companions were for. The universe wasn't old hat for them. It was new and exciting and fresh, and the Doctor just loved seeing their reactions. It was a large part of the reason "It's bigger on the inside" had long been his favorite sentence in the universe, because that always meant the beginning of something grand. The Doctor cast a gaze up at the beautiful skyline of Canterlot, up on the mountain not far away. Maybe some grand trip through the cosmos wasn't what was needed here. After all, he was going to get to that tomorrow. Perhaps just a quick trip to drop in on some other old friends. He hadn't taken his monthly tea with little Celestia yet, and he knew the Brigadier was likely driving those around him. What? He hadn't taken his monthly tea with little Celestia yet, and he knew the Brigadier was likely driving those around him batty with his inability to just sit still and be retired. So a quick little jaunt to modern-day Canterlot it was then. Of course, a mundane destination was no excuse for mundane travel. The train took too long in any event. The Doctor smiled as he entered his shop and made for the back room where she was waiting. The TARDIS, that magnificent little blue barn, and on the inside, the much larger than physically possible control room, with its myriad controls centered around the crystal spire. The surrounding had long become familiar to the Doctor. Old hat, even. It was that comforting sort of familiar. The familiar of home. "You ready for a little excursion, old girl?" he asked the room as he slipped on his traveling overcoat. After a brief moment, he chuckled. No, just a little one, up to Canterlot and back to see some old friends. We'll do something big and fantastic and brilliant tomorrow, when Derpy can make it. Now don't be like that. If I can hold off for a day, so can you." As he began his mad dash around the control to start her up, the Doctor smiled. "Let's make sure we arrive in style, shall we?" After the familiar noises of the TARDIS dematerializing hit his ear, the Doctor nodded. "Atta girl. Alonzi!" However, just a moment later, the whole of the TARDIS shook violently, and not in the same way it usually did under the Doctor's less than gentle driving. The Doctor was knocked to the ground, and before he could right himself, his head felt as though it had been split in two as a wave of temporal energy tore through him, knocking him unconscious. He didn't know how long he was out for, though in the time vortex that was always wonky anyway. But eventually the Doctor felt consciousness return to him. Groaning, he brought a hoof to his head and slowly stumbled upright. When he opened his eyes, he stared. It was his TARDIS, but not his TARDIS. It was as though the current desktop theme had been brutally combined with another, one he had yet to see. It was something he'd only seen once, when he forgot to put up the temporal dampening shield and... "Oh, not again," he muttered, then started. Another voice had said the exact same thing on the other side of the control. Slowly, he turned to peek at the source of the other voice, only to look into the green eyes of a completely alien face doing the same. Upon meeting each other's eyes, they leaped out to the open floor to get a better look at each other. The Doctor couldn't believe his eyes. He'd never encountered a creature like this before, all bipedal and tall and hairless, except for the almost black mop of it on his head. In his wanderings throughout the universe, any intelligent life that wasn't some squid thing had primarily equine features. This was something completely unseen before. It was the creature who spoke first. A pony. How did a pony of all creatures get here of all places? And such a tiny pony, too. "Oi, who are you calling a tiny pony?" the Doctor asked indignantly, rather irritated at discovering he did only come up with the other's waistline, though he did smirk inwardly as the other took a startled step backwards. Apparently, it had not expected him to be able to speak for some reason. The bipedal creature squatted down to look the doctor in the eye, a wide childlike smile appearing on his face. "Oh, that's cool. Really cool. A pony that can speak something other than horse. Now that is something I hadn't expected." Look here, you," the doctor growled, getting rather irritated by this strangely energetic intruder in his home. "I'm not a pony, I'm a horse. I'm a time chain charger from Gallifrey, if you don't mind." The other creature's eyebrows shot up in astonishment for a moment. "A time..." The doctor smirked smugly. Apparently his race's reputation had reached even this odd alien. That smugness evaporated instantly when the other began laughing. "Oi, what's so funny? A time charger from Gallifrey?" the creature spluttered between hiccups. "I don't see what's so funny about it. What are you supposed to be anyway?" The other creature stood up straight and adjusted his bow tie. "I'm a Time Lord of Gallifrey. Nice to meet you, little pony time thing. I'm the doctor." The time charger blinked and shook his head in confusion. No, that can't be right. You can't possibly be the doctor. I'm the doctor." The other creature stopped for a moment, blinking with a blank expression on his face, then looked around, scrutinizing his surrounding. He pointed out a bit of the current console room that matched the time charger's TARDIS and looked inquisitively back at him. "Yours?" he asked. "Oh yes, definitely mine." Cottoning on, the time charger pointed out one of the unfamiliar bits. "Yours?" The Time Lord nodded enthusiastically. "Well, how about that? An alternate universe. One where the Time Lords, and as such I would assume most forms of intelligent life, developed as equins. Wait." His eyes narrowed dangerously. "You're not some evil me, out to steal my remaining regenerations in order to live longer, are you?" "What?" the time charger cried out indignantly. "No, I was just going on a little drive when you ran into me." A grin broke out on the taller being's face. "Yes, I suppose I did at that. Funny. Not exactly how I was planning to spend oblivion. I guess I wasn't erased from my universe so much as I was evicted. I suppose I always was a crummy lodger." He chuckled at what was apparently a private joke. The time charger kicked at the ground in irritation. "Yes, well, what are we going to do about you, eh? While our TARDISes are fused like this, we're stopped dead." "Oh, will you calm down? We're stopped, but we're stable. At least it isn't 6 minutes to Belgium. Again. At least it isn't 6 minutes to Belgium. Again." The Time Lord seemed suddenly struck by a thought as he brought up his wrist to look at his watch. "Oh boy, I'm late. Very late. So entirely late. I can't go back out there looking like this." He then booked off for the deeper recesses of the TARDIS. The time charger ran after him. Wait! What are you doing? What do you mean evicted from your universe? What are we going to do about this?" "I'm going to get changed. I meant exactly what I said, and I propose we do nothing." The time charger practically tripped over his hooves. "Nothing? We can't just do nothing. We're stuck here. Doctor! He ground his teeth in frustration as his otherworldly double vanished into the wardrobe. "Is this what it's really like talking to me?" he muttered to himself. "If it is, it's a wonder I haven't been throttled by a companion years ago." He reluctantly entered into the room after his bipedal counterpart, and was startled to see row after row after row of clothes racks, not of his size, but standing double his height. "Good job. The wardrobe ended up being mine." A muffled voice sounded from within the maze of racks. "Go ahead and make yourself comfortable. We've still got a few minutes before the show starts." The doctor rolled his eyes as his counterpart The doctor rolled his eyes as he contented himself with checking out his current surroundings. So very familiar they were, and yet so alien at the same time. "Okay," he admitted to himself. "I guess I haven't seen it all quite yet." He stopped short when he reached the back of the room. There, against the wall, just like in his own wardrobe, was a group of mannequins, each wearing a distinct outfit. The first, an old black suit. The mannequin posed with a gnarled cane. The second, a much shorter mannequin, wearing a similar suit but with a bow tie. A third, taller mannequin, wearing a frilly red ensemble with an opera cape. The fourth, and tallest of all, in a shabby brown coat and a scarf that reached the floor despite being wrapped around the mannequin several times. At the fifth, the doctor smiled. The crickety cricket stuff, sized and fit for a biped, but still immediately recognizable, and still with the celery stalk on the lapel. The sixth wore a blindingly bad overcoat that drowned out the rest of the ensemble, and the seventh wore a comparatively tame tan outfit with a question mark motif. The eighth had gone back to frills, similar to the third, and the ninth wore a subdued black leather jacket over a green jumper. And now the doctor's eyes widened as his pupils dilated to tiny little pinpricks. There was a 10th. It was a skinny mannequin, wearing a brown trench coat over a darker brown pinstripe suit. The doctor absent-mindedly ran a forehoof across his own coat sleeve. What? Somehow the other doctor heard him and recognized the tone, because he suddenly appeared at his side, half-dressed in black slacks, a white shirt, and a pair of suspenders that he hadn't pulled over his shoulders yet. What? What's wrong? What is... He suddenly stopped as he saw what was going on. He looked at the mannequin, then back at the time charger, then smacked his forehead. He didn't notice the similarities at the time. How could he? Really? The other him was a pony, but now that he made the connection, it was blindingly obvious. The short, messy mane, the brown overcoat, even his body language just reeked of his former self. For a few moments, passed in silence, which was odd considering who the two beings were. Then the time charger looked up at his taller counterpart. Well, this is, interesting. How did this happen exactly? The taller doctor exhaled as he pulled his suspenders over his shoulders. Now that is a question. A difficult question, quite possibly a dangerous question. Actually don't know the repercussions if I were to answer it, truth be told. I've already been proven wrong once today. The equine doctor held up a hoof to stop the other's ramblings. No, stupid question. One I should know better than to ask. Just took me by surprise is all. The Time Lord nodded. Well, I suppose I can tell you this much. I was alone when it happened, and it probably happened because I convinced myself I was better off that way. Worst mistake of my life, really? My very long mistake-riddled life. If I were to give you some advice, which of course I never do, I'd say to keep your companions close. They won't be around forever. He cast his smaller counterpart a searching glance. I notice I haven't met your companion yet. What? This? The time charger responded with a nervous laugh. This is nothing. Really, just a quick little trip to see some old friends while my companion took care of some personal business. I'm not alone. Not like that. No, not really. Good to hear. Now, I really need to get back to getting ready. You've really made me so very late, you know. And with that, the bipedal doctor disappeared back into the maze of clothes racks. The other doctor cast a look at where his other self vanished. Late for what, exactly? Didn't I tell you? I've got a wedding to attend. The doctor stepped out from the racks, clothed in black tails, a white bow tie, a top hat, a white untied dress scarf. Well, how do I look? Like a hairless ape. Hey, there's no call for that. Well, you called me a pony. Their banter was cut short as a female voice with an accent began to float through the room. Sorry, everyone, but when I was a kid, I had an imaginary friend. The hairless ape suddenly sported a smile that threatened to split his face at the sound of it. The Raggedy Doctor. The Raggedy Doctor. My Raggedy Doctor. But he wasn't imaginary. He was real. Oh, Amy Pond, you did it, he whooped. It was impossible, but you did it. Just like I figured you would. Come along, Doctor. Back to the control room. And with a mad laugh, he was off, a confused doctor in his wake as the voice continued. I remember you. I remember. I brought the others back. I can bring you home too. Raggedy Man, I remember you, and you are late for my wedding. Ah, right you are, Miss Amy Pond, the doctor whooped as he came to a stop in front of the control console. And we can't have that now, can we? He turned to the time charger. Very nice to meet you, Doctor. Sorry I can't stay, but as you can see, I've got a previous engagement. Adios, ciao, and all that. The similar doctor watched with a bemused smile on his face as the bipedal and all the familiar TARDIS bits vanished before him. The Murrid family and friends of the bride and groom turned in their seats as the fierce windstorm suddenly erupted without warning and indoors. The only ones not affected were the bride and groom themselves. The bride, a now grown-up, now married Amelia Pond Williams, standing at her place of honor with a satisfied smile on her face. The groom, one Rory Williams, just sitting there watching, mildly confused as to why he wasn't panicking. I found you, Amy continued. I found you in words, like you knew I would. That's why you told me that story. The brand new, ancient blue box. Oh, clever, very clever. Rory cast a glance up at his new friend, rather convinced she'd gone mad. Amy, what is it? Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And with a sound unlike anything else in the universe, a pristine blue police box, the likes of which only a few of the gathered friends would have ever remembered being in use, appeared from nowhere in the middle of the floor. Rory looked on in confusion as a rush of memories filled his head. It's the doctor. How did we forget the doctor? I was plastic. He was the stripper at my stag. He cast a confused look at Amy, who was looking on with an amused look on his face. Long story. The Amy was off like a shot. Then Amy was off like a shot, practically leaping over the tables to reach the blue box. Okay, Doctor. Did I surprise you this time? She asked, knocking at the door. The door swung inward and out peeked the doctor, clearly dressed, possibly even overdressed, for the occasion. Yeah, completely astonished. Never expected that, he said, not even attempting to cover it with false sincerity. How lucky I happen to be wearing this old thing. Stepping out of the box, a huge smile plastered on his face. The doctor addressed the gathering ensemble. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy's imaginary friend. He vigorously shook the father of the bride's hand as he added, but I came anyway. Derpy was running late. How in Equestria could she possibly be running late? She blamed the doctor. He had completely messed up her sense of time. Dinky had already gone on ahead with the Apple family, who had a little filly in the patch themselves, and it wasn't like Derpy was one to preen herself for anything. So how was it possible she was still running late? She practically kicked the front door as she prepared to charge out it, only for it to suddenly stop partway with a loud bang and accompanying "Ow!" She peeked out a flurry of apologies ready to spill from her lips when she saw who she slammed into. It was the doctor, dressed in his favorite blue shirt, rubbing his nose in irritation. What was that for, Dorpy? I know I was a bit of a bother this afternoon, but that's no reason to assault me. He looked her in her left eye and winked with a grin. Doctor! Derpy sputtered. What are you doing here? Well, I thought to myself, Derpy would probably like somebody to accompany her to the heartwarming Eve pageant tonight. Yeah, she'd probably like that a lot. And since I really don't have anything better planned for tonight, I might as well be that somebody. Derpy smiled and planted a quick kiss on the doctor's cheek. Thanks, Doctor. That's sweet. Now come along. We're late. Oi, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm the one who tells you to come along. The end. I want to make this really quick because I really don't feel like going through all of this. So, thanks for watching my video. Like, subscribe. Go check out Doom Pie and Brony Fanfics. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Brony on!